By 2004, 2005, I started getting tired of being in the financial industry. I was looking for more challenges, wanted to do something different, and startups still weren't a thing outside of Silicon Valley. They were not really well understood. New York had a little bit of a tech and startup community in the first dot-com bubble in the late 90s, but by early 2000, it was more or less gone. But tech still fascinated me, so we got involved with a network security company in early 2004, late 2004, early 2005. This company was based out of St. Louis here in the US, and it was around the time that there was a lot of hardware network oriented companies popping up around the US. Barracuda Networks, Juniper was a little bit older, but there was a lot of networking companies that were popping up. So it was a great time to kind of jump into the hardware appliance space. The startup didn't work out so well, but it was a great learning experience. Learned a ton about the whole environment, learned a lot about corporate governance and why that's important, and how you really need to think about shareholding versus the board. I had been involved with startups prior to that also, since probably about 8 years before that, but they were all in the financial sector, so it was a little bit different. This was my first pure tech-oriented company. When we saw that the company wasn't working out, we wound up selling the company back to the founders, left, and that's when I kind of decided, like, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to get a job on Wall Street again or do something else? I decided to move to India and did a startup in India for about 3 years. It was a very, very difficult time. Did not know anyone in India, did not know anything about doing business in India, didn't know the cultural nuances about hiring people. So it was just, every day was just getting smacked around and learning, being forced to learn. But after some time, I started meeting some interesting folks, and partly through my own need, I started organizing events. And that was really to hire people, to find a co-founder. I wasn't looking for funding at that time. I was bootstrapping everything, but I really needed help. I needed mentorship. I needed people who can teach me about doing business in India. And my startup was kind of a cross between a reverse auction marketplace and a gig economy. So the idea was to basically take and I'm sure in Bangladesh it's very similar, most middle class and upper middle class families have help, right? They have drivers, they have nannies, they have cooks, and people are always looking for work. So it was kind of, how do we bring the bottom of the pyramid that is constantly looking for work together with people that are willing to pay them to do certain types of work, like cooking and cleaning and taking care of their kids and so on and so forth. So it was a tech platform to enable that. After 2.5 years of really pushing very hard to find people, to build a product out, we had done some alpha tests in Delhi. There was a lot of demand on the upper middle class and middle class family side because people were always looking for help. But what we found really interesting was that there was not as much demand amongst the supply side, right? The people that were actually performing the work, and which I thought was very strange and very counterintuitive for me, because look, you have an opportunity to make more money. Why wouldn't you take it? Well, we found that people really valued their quality of life, and earning like another 50 rupees or 100 rupees a day additional wasn't necessarily enough for a lot of people to give up certain parts of their life, right? So if you had to work longer hours, they didn't necessarily want to do that. They wanted to work shorter hours. So there were things like that, which we thought was really interesting and very eye-opening for me. But the reason I'm talking about all this is like trying to illustrate that there was a journey that I was on as an entrepreneur myself, and it was a pretty painful journey, and a lot of learnings that essentially negated my whole thesis and my whole reason for moving from New York to India.